A special focus on COVID-19, exactly a year since patient zero was identified in South Africa. Let's get the lead tease. We'll start with Heidi.
If you're wondering why I'm in a vehicle at this stage, it's because we're taking a look at how long the journey has been. It's exactly a year since our first case of COVID-19 was detected in South Africa. I'll have more details in a short while.
Sipho Mandla.
Healthcare workers in Limpopo are calling for a speedy vaccination rollout targeting those with comorbidities as the country commemorates the first anniversary of COVID-19. I'll have more details shortly.
Mawande.
After struggling with a COVID-19 outbreak during the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, St. Augustine Hospital has turned the tide and now is operating one of the province's first private hospital vaccination sites.
And Aisha.
Healthcare workers in the Western Cape say it was for them to lose hope in the beginning. Didn't know how to treat COVID-19 patients, but gained skills and knowledge beyond the call of duty to save lives.
What a year it's been. 365 days ago, the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in South Africa. Since then, over 1.5 million people have been infected, with the total number of deaths at just over 50,000. Government has been criticized for its vaccination rollout. Our reporters are across the country speaking to people at the forefront and assessing the year that was. They all join us now live. So Heidi, we'll start with you. Of course, exactly a year since we identified the first case in South Africa. Take us through the vaccine rollout first. How fast is this going, or is it going too slow?
Well, Shahan, speaking about speed, we actually are just taking a look at how long this journey has actually been. And again, if you're wondering why I'm in a vehicle, we initially thought when the first case of COVID-19 hit South Africa, we thought it was just going to be a trip around the block. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. It feels like we've gone to Cape Town a million times over, and still we are in the very same position, probably even worse because of what COVID-19 has done. We are at Mill Park Hospital, where this has also been one of the vaccination centres where healthcare workers have been vaccinated. Of course, it's been a very difficult time for healthcare workers. They have been at the forefront, with many wondering, when they're going to move into the second phase. We do know that over 90,000 healthcare workers have been vaccinated to date, and of course, government indicating that they are trying to make sure that they get as many people vaccinated as possible. But of course, there is an issue with how many vaccines we get into the country, as we do know that Johnson & Johnson has been on a trial basis brought into the country. So this will take a little bit longer for the vaccine rollout to be fast-tracked, as for now we can only have a certain amount of vaccines brought into the country because it is on a trial basis. But let's listen to what a webinar discussing vaccine rollout in South Africa and where we are to date had to highlight about the vaccine rollout.
In quarter one, which is the quarter we are presently in, which ends end of March, we have around 700,000 lives secured. Okay, now that doesn't mean these are shots that are going to be administered. This is forecast to start to arrive in the country. Okay, and then we move into quarter two, which is a critical quarter, as I said earlier, and there the number increases to 5.3 million lives. So you get 6 million lives of landed stock equivalent that would land in the country by the end of quarter two. Okay, and then quarters 3 and 4 give you, at best estimate right now, in excess of another 20 million lives that would be covered. So that's the best we understand the supply pipeline as it stands at present. And perhaps Dr. Pillay...
So Heidi, I see you've just managed to get a parking spot there, but it is also about getting vaccines, right? South Africa is trying very hard to get more and more vaccines, but the pace at which we're getting it is quite slow. There is concern about stock. Tell us about that.
Yes, most certainly, and I think this is such a crucial part in government trying to fast-track the vaccine process. We do know, Shahan, that there was a setback after government said that the AstraZeneca vaccine program was going to be put on hold, and of course then government needed to have discussions with other manufacturers, and this is why we know that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was brought in. We do know every second week we'll be getting doses of 80,000, and then the last week we'll be getting 60,000. And government, of course, highlighting that there will most certainly be a shortage of the vaccine globally. This is a problem that is being picked up as countries across the world are trying to get herd immunity, which is basically the only weapon that we have right now to fight this pandemic. But in South Africa, we have another problem, which is the fact that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been brought in for trial purposes. And this means that it slows down the process of getting the vaccine rolled out as quickly as possible. And even though government wants to inoculate over 1 million healthcare workers by the end of March, this is, of course, going to be hampered or limited depending on how many vaccines we get into the country. We know government's trying to speak to other manufacturers such as Pfizer to bring in more vaccines, which is needed to get phase 1 out of the way and then move into phase 2 and phase 3. But let's listen to what Glenda Gray had to say about the limited stock and how that is a limitation in the vaccine rollout.
As far as the Pfizer is concerned, also I think it's similar timelines. Is that the first thing we have to do is do the regulatory hurdle, and I understand this is going to be a Section 21 application, and I think it's imminent, the Section 21 application for Pfizer, and that will then mark the first tranche of vaccines. If I think if we keep to our timelines, these vaccines should be in the country, in by the end of March, early April, and maybe Stavros can confirm that. But I think that's the kind of timelines. I know people are saying that the 500,000 doses to healthcare workers we're going very slow, but you have to realize this is under study conditions, and so the ramp up will be much faster when these vaccines are registered in the country. So the reason why it seems like we're taking a long time is because we have to do it under study conditions, and so that does slow down the process. But once these vaccines are registered, these processes will speed up rapidly.
All right, let's move to Cape Town now. Of course, the Western Cape was one of the epicenters of this virus at one stage in the past year. Aisha Ismail, you've been speaking to healthcare professionals about their experiences over the past 365 days. What are they saying?
That is correct, Shahan. And so the health professionals that I spoke to earlier this morning, they were saying that it was just so easy for them to lose hope at the beginning. They felt hopeless and helpless because they really didn't know how to deal with COVID-19 patients. And then as time progressed and they gathered more skills and knowledge, they were able to go beyond the call of duty to try and save lives. In fact, they actually put their own lives on the line to save others. They were also talking about the camaraderie amongst all healthcare workers, and also this camaraderie was shared between the public and the private sector. But let's take a listen to what one of the doctors at Tygerberg Hospital had to say.
A lot of us were working very long hours, seeing lots of patients. At the same time, our friends and families were also getting admitted to hospital, and for me personally it was a struggle to find beds for some of my family members while we were on call.
And of course, Aisha, unions have been quite critical of how governments handle certain things, in particular PPE. You managed to speak to Nehau. What did they say?
So, Shahan, the representative from Lihawa was quite satisfied with the manner in which things were being run here in the Western Cape. She did, of course, say that things could have been done better, but she was also mindful of the fact that this was the first time that we were dealing with a pandemic of this nature. But let's take a listen to what she had to say.
It's a very traumatic experience because we are from certain hospitals, workplaces, and you will see wherever you are. Today, this person is working with you. I think the second nurse who retracted COVID. I think the whole ward was almost affected. 6 to 8 people were affected, and the very first nurse, she had us in tears how we were crying about her. It was a very traumatic experience. And I think up till now, because some of them were today here with you, tomorrow you're hearing they are in the ICU, and they never came back, they died. And some, like in instance, and I can say today we were like soldiers. We were in the front line facing this pandemic. It was a scary thing, no one knew how to treat it, and it was an exercise, you unsure about everything. And this person is dying today, and we kept asking ourselves, who is next? This is what we went through as healthcare workers.
Let's move to Polokwane, where Sipamandla Goge is standing by. There was a threat by healthcare workers to go on strike on Monday, Sipa. Is that going to happen?
Well, that threat still stands, Sean. I can tell you that as we speak, there are back-to-back meetings between health sector unions as well as the employer here in the province, that is the Department of Health in Limpopo. But these issues are long-standing issues between the unions and the Department of Health. Every time in Limpopo you hear about this tension between the Department of Health and the health sector unions. In this case, the unions are claiming that, or are saying that, the working conditions of their members have been amended without consultation. Rosters have been changed without consultation. They say that affects the social life and the working hours of their members, and they have threatened to go on strike on Monday, but they do have lunch hour pickets just outside this provincial hospital in Polokwane where we are right now. Every lunchtime there is a picket that is going on here as a build-up to that looming strike. Whether it will be averted or not, well, provincial authorities are adamant and hopeful that it will be averted, but unions are saying they are just waiting for the employer to come to the table and suspend those circulars that were issued in connection with the working hours and conditions of the members of the unions. But let's listen to Nehau and Dinosa in Limpopo explaining about this.
Our workers and our members are now at strain, particularly on the issues regarding to the working hours which the employer is now imposing. We are on the table, we are having a meeting at 10, which the MEC is intervening, and the onus really is on the employer because we are quite ready to engage on the table, and the two circulars are set aside or withdrawn so that we are on equal footing when we negotiate.
It is in his powers to make sure that the strike does not occur. Simple things. Withdraw or suspend the circular, let's engage. Because you can't implement, you can't change conditions of employment without engagement. It's clear in the LRA, that's what we are saying. But there is a little bit of progress, I can say, because we are engaging with the department, but they must move with speed, because we're talking about the 8th. The 8th is Monday, today is Friday.
So, Sipia, what are healthcare workers saying about the vaccination rollout and their experiences?
Well, they are happy to have been vaccinated, but they are saying now that some of them have been vaccinated. They are calling for a speedy rollout in terms of finishing with the frontline workers, which are healthcare workers. Today, as we speak in this province of Limpopo, there are vaccinations taking place in other districts like Vembe. In Malamulele, there is a vaccination going on there. Here in Polokwane, as we speak today, we are told that, well, it will resume tomorrow. But healthcare workers are saying, yes, they are happy that they have received their jabs, but they are saying their colleagues need them too. But they seem to be worried about the second phase. They are saying if the first phase is so slow. They are worried that there won't be enough time to catch up with the second phase and vaccinate those who are regarded as the vulnerable groups with comorbidities. They are saying that needs to happen before the looming third phase, or should we say before there is a third phase which is projected. Up until that happens, they say they continue to worry about what should happen if and when the third phase come. But let's listen to two doctors that we spoke to earlier on, explaining and also recapping, reflecting on their experience working during this pandemic.
Been vaccinated about 2 weeks ago. I feel great. It's a bit easing on the mind to know that to some certain level or extent you are immune. And but anyway, it does not remove the fears that we have. We are not supposed to walk by fear, but you come to work uncertain. Lives are lost in front of you. When you get to work, you are so, and there's no point of reference to know how is this done, how are you supposed to go about it, because it's a new thing to all of us. So it has been a difficult journey, but we are here.
Well, at the beginning we were understandably anxious because we were hearing reports of a disease with a high mortality, and it was a disease that none of us had encountered before. So that created a sense of anxiety within us as the healthcare workers. Over the last 12 months, we've gone through a range of emotions. We've celebrated when we've had a large number of our patients recovering and being able to go home. But we've also been distraught when we've seen the high mortality, particularly for those patients who are in our ICUs and patients who are admitted. And very sadly, we've also lost some of our colleagues as well as family members, either within this hospital or at other hospitals. So it's been a tale of a few celebrations and quite a lot of tragedy and sadness from the number of deaths that we've seen.
All right, let's move to Durban, where we have Mawande Keswa. Of course, you're at the St. Augustine's Hospital. They had a pretty difficult time with the high infection rate there. They've now rolled out their vaccination program.
Yes, they started on Wednesday, and it seems like they've got a well-oiled machine here. But don't just take it from me. I'm going to bring into the conversation Mamwini Ngwane, who is the Deputy Nursing Manager here. Mamwini, could you please just give us a brief description of what takes place at this vaccination site and which catchment area do the people that come here fall under?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers. Our focus is on all the private sector around Durban. It's LandMed, Life Healthcare, Busamed, and the Netcare hospitals and the other private practitioners like doctors, the therapists, they all come here. As long as they have the voucher number, they've applied through Sisonke website, and they can come. So that's the mandate we were given to service the private sector. So we opened on Wednesday. And from Wednesday, it was quite hectic because most people arrived at 5:30 when the center was only opening at 8. So it looked a bit like we were delayed when they are the ones who arrived early. But the process is very smooth. We have a queue outside where their temperatures are checked prior to screening, so that by the time they get to the screening, they are already checked their temperatures to make the thing to go quick. So after that, then they move to registration, so we can verify their stickers, the ones that they receive via SMS, so that we know that they are supposed to come for vaccination. And we are also provided with the lists from different hospitals where all the names of the people who are for vaccination are documented. So also the hospitals are also sending staff that come and assist us. So it's a number of different hospitals who are doing different tasks. It's not only St. Augustine's. So we have another desk after that where we do online registration, so that Sisonke will have the correct stats. And from there, they queue for vaccination. After vaccination, there is a recovery area. And then after recovery, they are being informed if they are ready to be discharged, and they go to the discharge desk for discharge. And after that, then they are advised on what to monitor when they are at home. So far, we haven't had anybody who has had side effects. We have a resource bay where we cater for anyone who might have side effects. So far, since we started on Wednesday, everybody has been going home happy. And we haven't had anything that is negative since we started. We've got a lot of compliments from the people who have attended our clinic to this day. So on our first day, we had 520 people who were vaccinated, all healthcare workers. And on the next day, we had 719. And today we have achieved 720, which was our target for today. So we won't be vaccinating tomorrow and Sunday, as well as Monday. We'll start again on Tuesday.
Now, you yourself are a health worker. How do you feel about the fact that you've now received this layer that may play as extra protection for you? There was quite some nervousness around healthcare workers and the risk associated with the virus, particularly in this institution during the first wave. There were quite a number of healthcare workers. From then until now, how has the vaccine assisted, or how do you think it's assisting healthcare workers to just gain more of confidence and an edge in knowing that they have an extra layer of protection?
Since we started, everyone is very happy with the process, and most of the staff are vaccinated, though we started with those who are at high-risk areas, like emergency department, ICUs, and theatre. So we started with those, and then after that we started with the staff that are working in the red areas. Red areas is those units that have COVID-positive patients, and the doctors also and the therapists who are working in those areas. Everyone has accepted this program very well. We only had a few, maybe it's 0.1% of the people who felt they are not happy to receive the vaccine. We are still trying to persuade them. We understand that no one is forced, but we are just trying to make them understand that it is a good thing to participate in this program.
Thank you very much there for your time. We have been speaking to Umam Winingwane, who is the Deputy Nursing Manager here at St. Augustine's Hospital at the Vaccination Center behind me.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Our reporters all over the story: Heidi Jakos, Sipamandla Goge, Mawanda Keswa, and Aisha Ismail. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Now, one of the doctors who treated the first patient diagnosed with COVID-19 in the country has reflected on the day that he was admitted at Grace Hospital in Pietermaritzburg. Dr. Bradley Naidu explains how they prepared themselves for South Africa's patient zero.
I think it must have been almost an hour or so before the patient came in. But that 1 hour felt like 1 day of life. A million thoughts rushed through my mind at that point regarding the patient. With all of this news from overseas speaking about how sick people were, we were wondering how sick this individual would be. Would they need oxygen? Would they need ICU? What care could we give them? Because they were so little known at that point. But thoughts also went through to badly my own personal safety as well as the safety of the team around us. And much in those preceding weeks was done by with the exceptional work from our minister, our MEC, our leaders, our local hospital team, to set up an isolation area, to make sure that the area was safe and conducive to our patient and ourselves. And amazing work was done by our IPC sisters and team in terms of securing us PPE, training us how to use the PPE, which is now called donning and doffing. And all of this came into play in that one fateful night.